I'm Fawzi Hanano, Chief Development Officer of Cornish Metals, and joining me today on the call are Ken Armstrong, Interim Chief Executive Officer, Owen Mylop, Chief Operating Officer, and Matthew Hurd, Chief Financial Officer, as well as Irene Dorsman, Communications Manager. The intent here is to provide a brief summary and update on Cornish Metals development activities over the last year at our 100% owned South Crofty Tin project, which is located in Cornwall here in the UK. Ken will take you through the presentation, and afterwards we will answer questions that you can submit by using the Zoom Q&A function. As mentioned, the purpose of this webinar is to provide a corporate update and to answer your questions. As such, we will be making forward-looking statements relating to the company and the South Crofty project. So please be aware of the cautionary language associated with this presentation, which will be posted to our website. With that, I'm going to hand things over to Ken to take you through the presentation, after which we will answer questions. So again, please submit your questions using the Zoom Q&A function. And Ken, over to you.
Great, thank you, Fawzi. And thank you all for attending this post-AGM corporate presentation and update on Cornish Metals and our South Crofty Tin project. As we'll go through, we've made meaningful progress at South Crofty over the last year, culminating in last month in the release of a positive preliminary economic assessment, or PEA, of the project. But first, I want to start by thanking Owen and his project team, as well as Fawzi and Matthew, for managing the tremendous progress at South Crofty over the last year, having made important strides towards our goal of bringing responsible tin mining back to Cornwall after a hiatus of over 25 years. As many of you know, South Crofty was the last tin mine to shut down in Cornwall. And when it closed in 1998, it wasn't for a lack of tin mineralization within the South Crofty mine. It was rather because of a sustained low tin prices that started when the tin price collapsed in the 1980s. The fact that South Crofty stayed in production until 1998, approximately 13 years after the tin price collapse, underscores one of the great attributes of this project, that this was a high-grade, low-cost tin producer then, and we believe, based on the work that we're doing, that it can once again be a high-grade, low-cost producer of tin. A big change since the last century is the fact that tin is needed more than ever as a component in the form of lead-free solder in any electrical or electronic device, and is therefore critical for modern society, the clean energy transition, and renewable power generation. So just starting first with a quick corporate snapshot for where we're at. Cornish Metals maintains its dual listing on the AIM as well as the TSX Venture exchanges, and has about 535 million shares outstanding. Vision Blue Resources is our largest shareholder at about 26%, having led the £40.5 million financing completed just over 2 years ago. That financing was intended to see us through a 30-month period towards the end of 2024, and as of March 31st, we have a cash position of about 17 million Canadian dollars. One obvious thing that we should touch on here is the significant traded volume that we saw during the week of May 13, which originated with a single persistent seller through the TSX Venture exchange. We canvassed our shareholders, and the seller was not confirmed. The selling unfortunately muted what had been a positive market response to the April 30th PEA, but that said, the selling appears to be behind us, and we believe the PEA and the other work completed over the last couple of years validates and confirms that the South Crofty project is a compelling development stage tin project with a clear path forward and potential production at a time when additional tin supply is needed. So in reviewing the last year, the PA was clearly the milestone piece of work, announced April 30th with the accompanying technical report filed just last week. The report is available on our website and also under our profile on SEDAR+. I'll touch on the PEA results in a moment, but it's worth highlighting some of the specific work activities that the PEA is built around, much of which was completed as intended over the last year using the proceeds from the spring 2022 financing. This includes the updated mineral resource for South Crofty. This resource estimate was issued last fall, and it increased the indicated resource in the high-grade tin-only lower mine resource by almost 1/3. It's worth noting that the resource grade at north of 1.4% tin makes South Crofty the highest grade tin resource in the world that's not already in production, and I'll touch on that a little bit more later. We also completed construction and commissioning of the water treatment plant, and in November, we turned on the pumps and started dewatering the mine via the New Cook's Kitchen shaft, which is the main production shaft on the property, and one of 5 shafts that access the historic workings at South Crofty. Both the water treatment plant and the pumps are working as expected. The treated water is well within the permitted discharge limit set by the environmental agency. And we can see that on the chart on the right here, which is an example of the arsenic of the treated water running from the time of startup of the plant in April at the time of startup of the plant through to April, with arsenic levels well below the limit set by the EA. The treated water coming from the plant is near drinking water quality and benefits the Red River, which used to receive the untreated mine water from South Crofty, but is now receiving the treated water and is a tangible visual improvement to the river. And you can kind of see that in the photo in the upper right, which shows the 3 cells of the water treatment plant and the very sort of orange iron-filled water in the upper part of the photo, and then the clear water before it's discharged into the Red River. Similarly, the pumps are working very well and to specification. There's actually 2 pumps in place down the shaft, and a single pump can readily maintain the water level in the mine and continue to draw it down. We do also have a spare new pump on site, or a new motor on site rather, as part of our contingency planning. Earlier this year, we announced a rephasing of the dewatering program so that refurbishment of the New Cook's Kitchen shaft will now happen in parallel with mine dewatering. So basically, we'll be doing both things at the same time. To do this, we've been holding the water level in the mine steady at about 280 meters below surface while the refurbishment work proceeds. Once the shaft is refurbished to the current water level, both the dewatering and the refurbishment will carry on or proceed together in tandem. In support of this work, 2 winders and cages for the New Cook's Kitchen shaft were installed and commissioned to allow for the start of the refurbishment work. I think it's also worth noting that the New Cook's Kitchen shaft is a rectangular shaft, and half of it is already refurbished, and it's the refurbished side of the shaft where the pumps and the risers are located. It's the other side of the shaft that still has the old timbers that need to be removed and replaced with new galvanized steel guides and buntons, and this work is what we mean when we talk about refurbishing the mine shaft. We've guided that the mine dewatering and the shaft refurbishment are anticipated to be completed during Q3 2025. One of the most critical pieces of work completed over the last year and included within the PEA was the important metallurgical work on samples collected as part of our metallurgical drilling program. This work was focused on improving recoveries using dense media separation and XRT optical ore sorters like the one shown here. The results from this work were very positive, as reflected in the PEA, from which the chart on the lower right is based. The light gray bars represent material mined at 500,000 tons per year versus 250,000 tons per year processed through the mill, as shown by the dark gray bars. Utilizing XRT and dense media separation, pre-concentration is effectively going to cut the tons milled in half with only 3% metal loss, effectively doubling the mill feed tin grade to around 2% in the first 6 years of production. Lastly, we've also continued with exploration drilling of the Wide Formation, a previously unmined mineralized structure shown here on the image in the blue hatched oval, approximately 1 kilometer south of the South Crofty site infrastructure. Still early days for this target, but if a resource was to be defined at the Wide Formation, it would be accessible from South Crofty's underground workings and could potentially increase mine life and allow for increased production. So as noted, the PEA is an important step for the company and for the South Crofty project. The assessment was our first opportunity to wrap economics around the project, taking into account the developments over the last couple of years in order to reflect what the project could be. The assessment outlines what we believe is a robust project with potential to become a domestic supply of primary mine tin to the UK and to European markets. The PEA returned an after-tax NPV at an 8% discount rate of just over $200 million and an after-tax internal rate of return, or IRR, of about 30% at our base case tin price of $31,000 per ton. For reference, the current spot price is right around $33,000 a ton. The project requires $177 million of initial capital and has an after-tax payback period of about 3 years. The project will be an important tin producer, producing over 49,000 tons of tin in concentrate over the 14-year mine life, and will pay over £100 million in corporate taxes to UK governments. The project will be a low-impact mine with no surface tailings. Instead, we'll take advantage of the void spaces from historic mining to deposit processed tailings underground using paste backfill. The project has also been costed on the basis of using both 100% guarantee-backed renewable energy as well as biodiesel for all fuel needs. The project can readily handle the higher upfront costs with these initiatives. We believe that one of the key metrics of the PEA is the project's low all-in sustaining cost of under $14,000 a ton, $14,000 a ton of payable tin. As we pointed out in our May 1st presentation of the PEA, we believe that the low all-in sustaining cost confirms the potential for South Crofty to again be a low-cost producer. We believe the first 6 years of production are important because they will be focused on the high-grade tin-only mineralization of the lower mine and represent the production profile that this deposit really can be. The lower mine is essentially the same areas that were being mined in the 1990s after the tin price had collapsed to under $5,000 a tin. And through the early years of mining, we'll be producing, of this area, we're going to be producing over 4,700 tons of tin, representing about 1.6% of global mine production. And it's this production profile that we believe can be maintained through resource expansion and extension once we're fully dewatered and underground. This is the real prize at South Crofty, the potential to continue mining high-grade tin mineralization for many years beyond the 14-year mine life outlined in the PEA. Based on our understanding of the tin mineralization in the lower mine, we believe significant additional mineralization can be identified and added to the mine plan, and we intend to do this through delineation and exploration drilling once the mine is fully dewatered in 2025, with the goal to add resources in the lower mine to replace the early years of production and push the later years of production that are currently incorporated in the PEA outwards into the future. So just revisiting the South Crofty resource, just to help underscore our confidence in the potential for this future resource expansion. The image on the upper right here is a plan view. So looking down from above of the South Crofty resources, the brown shapes are the lower mine tin-only mineralization, and the blue shapes are the upper mine polymetallic mineralization. Of great importance is how continuous the mineralized zones are, in some cases extending for kilometers in strike. And where they are shown to end, this is often due to a lack of information and not necessarily the end of the mineralization. The image in the lower right is a cross-section of the historic workings at South Crofty. The golden or yellow areas are workings that date back 400 years and mine the polymetallic copper zinc tin mineralization within the sedimentary rocks above the granite. The gray area below the dashed line is the high-grade tin-only mineralization within the granites. And as you can see, much less of this area has been mined. That's mainly because they only started mining this area in the early 1900s, so less than 100 years of mine history. And then as the arrows show in kind of a cartoon way, there's plenty of potential to expand this high-grade tin-only mineralization to depth and along strike. And that's going to be our intent once we get dewatered and refurbished. So through our evaluation of South Crofty, we've continued to look at opportunities, either to improve the resource potential of the project, like the exploration drilling that's underway at the Wide Formation, or to advance the project more efficiently or more quickly. And one recent example of this was our announcement a couple of weeks ago of the purchase of an additional 7.7 acres of land that lie immediately adjacent to important South Crofty surface infrastructure, bringing the total area of land owned by the company to about 28.5 acres. So the acquired land on the slide is the area that's shown in green. And this land purchase was really important as it includes land on which the new Cook's Kitchen North Winder is located, and it removes any further reliance on third-party rights of way. So we now totally control access to and from the property going forward. And the added land also opens the door to evaluate additional operational efficiencies in the terms of infrastructure location, as well as potential renewable energy solutions. Another key theme I think here to touch on is tin. It's not as widely followed as other base metals, but tin is considered a critical mineral in North America and in the UK, with no primary production at present in North America or Europe. Tin has outperformed copper over the last 18 months, even though copper has been getting all of the headlines. And the current spot price at about $33,000 a ton compares to our PEA base case price of about $31,000, which matches the lower end of tin's long-term consensus price. This strong price forecast reflects the fact that the supply-demand metrics for tin are very compelling. There are a number of supply challenges playing out at present, including disrupted production from Myanmar and Indonesia, and there are a very limited number of near-term development stories. Equally important is that demand is forecast to continue to grow by about 30% over the next 10 years as tin's traditional uses for tin plate and chemicals hold steady and demand increases for the use of tin in lead-free solder in electronics and solar ribbon and solar panels. If you're a believer in the AI theme grabbing headlines at the moment, then tin is going to be needed for this to happen. So while tin is used in very small quantities, if there's an electrical connection, then tin is being used because it connects almost all electrical and electronic connections. And I think it's also important to note that tin in individual components can be very small, like maybe just a couple of pence worth of tin in a typical mobile phone, which means that the devices and the users and the consumers are relatively insensitive to the tin price. But on the whole, the number of electronic devices means that the demand supply is going to be very, very important, and the increase in the demand supply will be material. In terms of timelines and path forwards for the next year, we've noted that much of the PEA has been completed to a feasibility level, but there are still a couple of components that are not quite there, including work on the paste backfill plant, as well as the civil engineering and design work for the process plant facility. That work is ongoing with the goal of having the entire mine plan for the project completed to a feasibility level, except for the resource conversion drilling by the end of calendar 2024. Mine dewatering and shaft refurbishment are ongoing, with completion expected in Q3 2025, in advance of which we can commence resource conversion and expansion work in the lower mine, ideally by a combination of sampling, development, and drilling. So you'll note on this timeline slide that it doesn't actually have times on it, and that's because we intend to advance a number of these activities in parallel with each other. As part of that process, we are marketing the project and engaging with potential funding partners, looking for opportunities to secure project financing ahead of resource conversion, capitalizing on the project's advantages like being fully permitted and having important infrastructure already in place. Early project financing would allow us to proceed with some early development activities like the main production winder and process plant site development, with the goal of reaching tin production in 2027. We've cast quite a wide net for these discussions, but I think it's fair to say that initial conversations have been positive, and we believe this approach is reasonable and defendable for this unique project. With this path forward in mind, I'm bumping ahead here, apologies. But with this path forward in mind, we currently see a significant value gap between Cornish Metals' share price and the valuation of the South Crofty project as outlined in the PEA. Our current market capitalization represents less than 25% of the South Crofty NPV and is below the expected average annual after-tax cash flow generation for the project in years 2 through 6 of the proposed PEA mine life, which we, again, really think represents what this mine could be over the long term once we get underground and do our resource expansion. Optimization of mineral resources upside at South Crofty and our other exploration targets present further re-rating potential over the longer term, as would future M&A opportunities. So clearly, with the pressure that the share price has been under over the last month, we have work to do in marketing the company and the South Crofty project. However, with the valuation gap that we presently see, and on the basis of a strong PEA, we believe we have the platform to be able to do this. South Crofty is not your typical PEA stage project. It is fully permitted, and I don't think it's possible to overstress how significant a positive this is for the project. It has a long tin mining history in what is really the type locality for hard rock tin deposits. It has important legacy mine infrastructure in place. It has significant existing void space from that legacy mining to allow for 100% underground storage of processed tailings right from day one of mining operations. It has existing transportation and renewable power infrastructure in place, and it has a strong local workforce. The project's current workforce of 60-odd employees is comprised entirely of local Cornwall residents, from miners to security, to accounting, to procurement, engineering, to our chief operating officer. These are all attributes that most PEA level projects either lack or they still have ahead of them as hurdles to be cleared, but not South Crofty. We believe that with completion of the PEA and with the important work over the last year, that our team has significantly advanced our evaluation of South Crofty, moving us materially closer to realizing our goal of bringing responsible tin mining back to Cornwall and the United Kingdom. We still have work to do to get the project to a construction decision, but by completing the dewatering and refurbishment work, advancing mine planning through to feasibility level, and initiating conversations with potential funding partners, we have a solid path to follow with many of the risks around execution and financing within our control. So thank you for your support and for your interest, and please stay tuned for the next steps for the project as we move it forward. So that ends the formal part of the presentation, and maybe I'll hand it over here to, I think Matthew is in the hot seat to review any questions that you've had to submit, and we'd be happy to take you through them.
There's no questions being posted so far, so perhaps we just leave it open for a few 30 seconds, see if anyone wants any questions.
Great. Well, thanks very much, everyone, for tuning in. Obviously, you can contact us through our website and our regular contacts. We're happy to take you through the project and how we're advancing things. It's going to be busy, and really appreciate your support for the project, and look forward to keeping you informed as we move along.
There's one open question.
Okay, oh yeah, I guess just one question here. Thanks. And it's just on news of the new CEO. Obviously, I'm an interim CEO, and there's a process in the works right now that is active, going through interview stages, and it's a position that we hope to get filled as soon as we can. And the current timeline, at the very least, would be by the end of the summer. But so stay tuned on that.
Thank you very much. This is the end of the webinar. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.